One of the questions that we're often asked is this: if God is just, then why would he kill an innocent man, Jesus, in order to save the guilty? Do you understand the question? They're basically saying that you cannot punish an innocent person for the sins or the crimes of the guilty. No justice system would allow that. For example, I want you to imagine that one of my children decided one day to rob a store, and on that day they shoot and kill the owner of the store. During their trial, I go up to the judge and I plead with him to allow me to take their place in jail. Would the judge agree to that? Absolutely not. No judge would allow me to go to jail in the place of my guilty child. We have a saying here in North America: you do the crime, you do the time. So how could God kill Jesus, who was innocent, and call that justice? What does that say about God? But what if that's not what happened? You see, nowhere in the Bible does it say that God killed Jesus. As a matter of fact, nowhere in the Bible will you find the concept that God the Father killed his son, Jesus. Jesus made it clear that he was giving up his life or he was laying it down. So what did he mean by that? Well, the Bible says that there's this law called the law of sin and death that says the soul that sins, it dies. Meaning that if you sin, the wages paid to you by sin is death. In other words, God doesn't have to kill you, your sin will. Here's what James 1:15 says: and when sin is fully conceived, it brings forth death. Make no mistake, God doesn't have to kill you, your sin will. Now, if that's true, then imagine what happened to Jesus when God the Father transferred the entire sin of the world onto Jesus. This sin was so heavy that Jesus couldn't see a way out of the tomb. He actually sweat blood at the thought of this. He knew this sin was going to kill him, and he wasn't sure if he was going to come out well on the other side. You see, when Jesus made the decision to forgive our sin, the only way he could do that was to remove it from you and to put it on himself. And when he did, the law of sin and death also transferred to Jesus, and that sin took his life. And that, my friends, is how Jesus won the war. The war was about whether or not God was loving, just, and fair. And Christ's sacrifice for us was all the proof that would ever be needed to demonstrate this truth: God is love. Our salvation was the very thing that gave Jesus victory over his enemy and ours. But there's more to say about that in future lesson studies. Well, that was our final thoughts and nuggets for this week. Now we want you to take some time this week to visit your local Adventist church and share with them some of the things you've learned this week about a God who is for us. And please, don't forget to join us next week as Seth will share with us some of his thoughts and insights into next week's lesson, the central issue, love or selfishness. I know you won't want to miss it. Well, thank you for joining us this week. Happy Sabbath to come. We will see you next week.